The first scream hit the morning air before my coffee even finished brewing. A sharp, frantic shriek high enough to scare birds off the cypress trees, followed by the unmistakable sound of someone shouting my name like a curse. I stepped onto my porch mug in hand, and there she was, Veronica Thorne, president of our illustrious HOA, standing in her designer pajamas in the middle of the cul-de-sac, staring at her BMW M8 like it had personally betrayed her. The car was up on jack stands, wheels gone, mirrors gone, battery neatly placed by my garage, the windshield resting gently against my mailbox. And I just took a slow sip of coffee and said, "Morning, Veronica. Looks like your parking privileges finally expired." People think this moment was sudden, some kind of overnight explosion. But no, this drama simmered for weeks, maybe years if I'm honest. And since you're here for the whole story, buckle up. Because what happened between me and Veronica wasn't a war over metal and concrete. It was about boundaries, respect, and the one thing you should never mess with a man's home, especially when it holds the last memories of the woman he loved. I moved into Cypress Creek Estates over 20 years ago with my wife Sarah. We were younger then, full of plans, real plans like replacing old windows ourselves or hand-painting the mailbox. The driveway was her crown jewel. She insisted we lay down thick gray stone pavers, the kind that looked like something out of a magazine. "Asphalt is sad, Marcus," she'd said laughing. After she passed, I kept everything exactly as she wanted. I'd pull weeds around her rose bushes like they were sacred artifacts. I kept her bird bath polished. And that driveway, I treated it like holy ground. For almost 2 decades, the HOA didn't bother me. Then came Veronica. You know the type. A woman who steps out of her car like she's climbing onto a yacht, sunglasses big enough to hide 3 egos behind them, and this aura. The kind of aura that says she believes God personally selected her to rule over a suburban neighborhood of 37 houses. When she became HOA president, she treated the title like a crown. The letters started immediately. One morning I found a note taped to my door informing me that my recycling bin was angled at a non-uniform position. Another claimed my shutters were fading by approximately 6%. 6%. I didn't even know eyes could calculate that. Then she came after my garage. I'd been restoring a vintage Ford F-100, a truck Sarah used to ride in with me. I rolled the truck halfway out to get better light, still well within my property line. But Veronica decided it violated HOA Rule 14B, partial garage overflow. At first I shrugged her off. People like her burn out eventually, or so I thought. Then came the morning I stepped outside, coffee in hand, and found her glossy black BMW M8 sitting directly in front of my driveway. Not near it, not beside it. Right in front of it, parked just close enough that I had to pull a stunt driver maneuver just to get out. Her own driveway. Empty. The curb in front of her house, wide open. Guest parking, a mere 50 feet away. I took a deep breath, walked across the street, and knocked politely. She opened the door wearing expensive athleisure wear and a look that said I had already ruined her day. "Yes," she asked. "I think you may have parked too close to my driveway," I said. "Mind shifting the car back a bit?" She blinked at me, slow and dramatic. "That's common area parking, Marcus. Perfectly legal." "I'm not saying it's illegal," I replied calmly, "but it does block access." She gave a tiny shrug, the kind of shrug people give when they want you to know they don't care at all, then said, "You'll manage," and closed the door in my face. The next day, the BMW was there again. Third day, still there. That time, she didn't even open her door. She spoke through the intercom. "It's legal parking. Don't bother me again." That was when it hit me. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't forgetfulness. This was a battle. A playground bully maneuver, territory marking. And she thought I'd be too tired, too old, or too polite to do anything about it. But here's the thing. Quiet doesn't mean weak. It just means patient. For over a week I endured her nonsense. I tried everything. I left a polite note under her wiper. The next morning that note was crumpled into a tight little ball and shoved into my mailbox like a taunt. I talked to neighbors. Everyone had a story of being bullied by her trash can angles, lawn heights, flower bed colors, but no one wanted to confront her because she knew every rule, every loophole, and used them like weapons. On day 12, when I nearly clipped her car while backing out, I knocked again. She opened the door halfway, irritation dripping from her voice. "What now?" she muttered. "You're blocking my driveway again. I really need you to move your car." She narrowed her eyes. "That space is common property. I can park there if I want." "You're being dramatic." Then she leaned in perfume, burning my nostrils, and looked at my old F-100 in the garage. "Maybe if you kept your property tidier, we wouldn't have these problems. That old truck looks like junk." That truck. The one Sarah loved. The one we spent countless hours driving during summers. She called it junk. I felt something twist inside me. Anger, grief, something in between, but I kept my voice steady. "Are you going to move the car or not?" She smiled, that smug, satisfied smile people wear when they think they've checkmated you. "No," she said. "I don't think I will." And the door shut again. That was the day I called the police. 2 young officers showed up, polite but helpless. "Unfortunately, sir, one said she's not technically blocking your driveway by law. It's an HOA matter." I watched them walk to Veronica's house. She opened the door instantly, transforming into a sweet, innocent angel, all giggles, and I didn't realize, and my goodness, officer, thank you for letting me know. They softened. They always do when someone like her plays that role. She shot me a triumphant glance when the officers left. The next day she parked even closer. That night I attended the HOA meeting. I should have known she'd get there early. The moment I walked in, she greeted me loudly. "Speak of the devil." Then she launched into attack mode, complaints about my shutters, my truck, even claiming my lawn had inconsistent height patterns. When I brought up her BMW blocking my driveway, she dismissed it instantly. "Legal parking. He's exaggerating." The board nodded. No one wanted to challenge her. I walked out feeling defeated, utterly powerless, like I was trapped in some suburban dictatorship run by a woman with a clipboard and a god complex. That night I sat in my garage staring at the half-finished F-100, and for the first time I wondered if maybe I was the problem. Maybe I was being too sensitive. Maybe I should just let it go. But then I looked at the pavers Sarah chose. I remembered us kneeling together, placing each stone by hand, laughing as she complained about her knees hurting. That driveway was the last project we ever completed together. It wasn't just stone, it was memory. That's when something inside me sharpened. Not anger. Anger blinds people. This was clarity, a cold, focused kind of determination. If Veronica wanted a battle, she was about to get one she could never prepare for. For the next few days, I pretended to give up. I acted polite, unbothered, quiet. She got comfortable. Bullies always do when they think you've surrendered. Meanwhile, my garage became a war room. I tried calling tow trucks again, but she stormed out screaming legal threats until drivers gave up. She won those rounds. Fine. If commerce wouldn't help me, the law would. I spent nights researching HOA bylaws, city codes, state statutes. Hours passed. Coffee cups multiplied. My eyes burned. Then I found an obscure line buried in the municipal code about abatement of nuisance vehicles. It stated that if a vehicle repeatedly obstructs access or creates a persistent nuisance, the affected property owner may take reasonable action to remove or mitigate the obstruction. And here was the golden phrase. Method of mitigation is not explicitly defined, provided no permanent damage is caused. My brain clicked. I'm a mechanic. I've rebuilt whole engines from scrap. I know how to take things apart cleanly, perfectly legally. Over the next week, I collected evidence. Time-stamped photos every morning. Wide shots, close shots. Measurements showing how close she parked. A cul-de-sac map documenting patterns. And I put everything in a blue binder so organized it could have been a court exhibit. Then I wrote Veronica a formal notice, certified mail, citing the exact statutes and giving her one last chance to stop. She signed for the letter with a bored flick of her wrist. Good, I needed that signature. And then came Monday morning. At exactly 7:23 a.m., the familiar growl of the BMW filled the cul-de-sac. I peeked through my blinds. Veronica pulled up, parked even closer than ever, almost theatrically, and glanced at my window with the smirk of someone who believed she was untouchable. She had just made the biggest mistake of her HOA career. At 2:14 a.m. that night, when the world was quiet, I opened my garage. The floor jack whispered under the BMW, lifting it smoothly. I secured jack stands at every point. My tools were prepped, impact wrench modified to operate quietly, microfiber towels ready, headlamp on. One by one the wheels came off. Then the battery, the side mirrors, every bolt stored in labeled bags, and finally the crown jewel, the windshield. Using a heat gun and a flexible blade, I sliced through the urethane seal like a surgeon. Not a crack, not a scratch. Every piece was pristine. By 4:30 a.m., the BMW M8 sat neatly dissected, still beautiful in its own skeletal way, resting above the pavement like a luxury puzzle undone. I cleaned up, showered, brewed coffee, and waited. At 7:18 a.m., like clockwork, Veronica stepped outside. Silence. 5 whole seconds of processing. Then, what did you do? High-pitched enough to alarm wildlife. I stepped onto the porch, taking a slow sip. Morning, Veronica. Looks like your car's missing a few parts. You psycho, you destroyed my car. Destroyed number, everything safely placed by my garage. Labeled even. Want to see the binder? She screamed for the police, for the board, for divine justice. Same officers arrived. She launched herself toward them, demanding my arrest. I handed over my binder. Photos, timestamps, certified notice, statutes. The female officer flipped through it calmly. Ma'am, she said he warned you. Repeatedly. And there's no evidence of damage. This is a civil matter. The male officer tried very hard not to laugh. Veronica's face melted. He dismantled an M8. Yes, ma'am, the officer replied, but legally. Her empire cracked right there. And within days it collapsed completely. She slapped me with a $500,000 lawsuit. My lawyer, Lydia Grant, smiled as she flipped through my binder. Marcus, this is beautiful. We're not just going to win. We're going to crush them. She subpoenaed HOA records, and the skeletons came tumbling out. Veronica had been waiving fines for herself, spending HOA funds on executive expenses, issuing citations without board approval. The board panicked. They held an emergency meeting. Residents confronted her. Tempers flared. At one point, Veronica screamed, "This is all because of that man and his stupid driveway." And someone in the crowd said, "Well, maybe don't park your car in front of it every day." Silence. The kind that ends careers. The lawsuit was withdrawn. The board voted unanimously to remove her as president. She was fined, forced to post a public apology on the HOA website for 30 straight days. And the BMW, she refused to pay the dealer to reassemble it, so they filed a mechanic's lien and repossessed it right off her driveway. She watched from her window, silent, sunglasses hiding her eyes for once. 3 weeks later, a for sale sign went up. She left without saying goodbye. The neighborhood felt lighter immediately. Kids laughed louder. People chatted again. Like we'd all been holding our breath under Veronica's rule and finally exhaled. One morning I sat on my porch with my coffee looking at the clean, empty pavers Sarah and I laid together. And I realized it wasn't revenge that drove me. It was about protecting the space she loved and the peace she gave me. Sometimes you don't pick the fight. Sometimes it shows up in your driveway every morning. But when it does, you stand your ground. Because bullies don't break when you yell back. They break when you stay calm. Document everything. And remind them that real power doesn't shout. It stands firm. And that's the lesson when someone crosses your boundary. Don't respond with rage, respond with precision.